Are you looking to get into the bug sweeping, the TSCM business? Have you noticed when you've tried to get into it that the price tag for the equipment that is necessary is really a barrier to getting into the industry? Well, that has all changed with the Bug Hunter Pro from PBN Tech. This little gadget right here has quickly become my now go-to bug sweeping device. In this video, I am going to go over step by step all of the functionality of the BH-04 Pro from PBN Tech. I'm also going to leave a link down below for you if you want to check it out. Now, keep in mind, this is a professional piece of bug sweep equipment. It is not one of those cheap Chinese pieces of equipment that you get online for 50 or 100 bucks. The BH-04 Pro is able to help you find just about any kind of bug out there that's transmitting any kind of a signal, whether it's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. It will even help find signal jammers. The BH-04 Pro comes as a standalone unit. It includes the two antennas, a USB charging cable and a charging block, a set of earbuds for it, and the manual. You can also get it in a kit that includes a very nice case and the Spy Finder Pro if you want to have more of a turnkey type of a product. Now I have mine set up in this case, and it is a case that I made myself, and I'll give you a good view of what I have in there. I have everything that I mentioned, but I do have my Spy Finder, my lens detector. I also have a set of JVC headphones. I'm going to leave a link for all of this down there as well. I just prefer headphones over earbuds when I'm doing a bug sweep. I also have a selfie stick here, and what I use this for is it has a clamp on the end that I can hook onto the Bug Hunter Pro so I can extend it out and reach up into higher places when I'm doing my bug sweeps. Now there are a ton of functions and features to the BH-04 Pro, and that's why I'm making this video to kind of go through step by step on how to use it. The first thing you want to do before you start using it is obviously to hook up both of the antennas. There is a smaller antenna and a larger antenna. They do need to go on in this pattern. The smaller antenna on the right, the larger antenna on the left. The larger antenna is going to go from, I believe it is 10 megahertz up to 2.4 gigahertz, while the smaller antenna goes from 2.4 gigahertz up to 8 gigahertz. Both of the antennas just screw on to the top of the Bug Hunter. Now, the BH-04 Pro is made of a very heavy-duty aluminum casing. It's very nice. It has several buttons on the left-hand port here. They are aluminum as well, and when you push them, they have a little bit of a click to them, and you can definitely feel as you push them in. There is also the USB port right there for charging and for connecting to your laptop. Now on the left side, these buttons, the top two buttons are for your volume control. It's volume up and volume down. And this is the power button for the BH-04 Pro. On the right side, it has a single audio port, a regular headphone jack right there that you can plug in either the provided earbuds that it comes with, which are like this, or like I said, I have purchased a set of JVC headphones because I prefer these during a bug sweep. On the front, we have a full color display that's very big and able to be seen, as well as several other buttons right here. Let's go ahead and turn it on by depressing the power button right here. Now let's go over what you see on the screen really quick with the Bug Hunter Pro. If you look right here in the top left, you'll see a little antenna that's lit up in green. It's lit up because that's the antenna that we selected, and it is identified as ANT, ANT1, or antenna 1. On the far right side, there is antenna 2. It is currently grayed out because it is not being used, and that is identifying antenna 2. To select which antenna that you're going to use, you would use the antenna button that is right here. If I press it one time, you will now notice that antenna 1 is grayed out and antenna 2 is lit up. That means that we are now utilizing antenna 2. If I hit it one more time, now you will see that both antenna 1 and antenna 2 are on by the green antenna and the blue antenna. This means we're now scanning using both of the antennas. Now, antenna 1 has a super high sensitivity range to it. When you're using both antennas at the same time, that does limit antenna 1 a little bit in what it's going to be able to detect. So if you're doing a quick sweep, you can use both at one time. If you want to be more comprehensive, you would do a sweep using antenna 1 and then a sweep using antenna 2. So what we are going to do for this demonstration is we're going to leave both antennas on, which means we are actually scanning from 10 megahertz all the way up to 8 gigahertz. The next indicator next to antenna 1 is the haptic feedback indicator, or the vibrate indicator. So this indicates whether the vibrate mode is turned on or turned off. My preference is to have the haptic feedback or vibration turned on, but you can change that to off, or there are 3 different levels of settings for the vibration, and we will go over all of the settings a little later. Right next to the vibration indicator is a speaker and the volume level. The speaker being lit indicates that audio is turned on, and then the volume level goes up and down. You can use the buttons here on the left to turn the volume up or turn the volume down, or go all the way down to volume off. You want to note that the volume settings are for both the speaker and for the headphones that you're using. Next to that, you'll see the time that the device is set for. You want to note this is in military time. When we go through the settings, I will show you how to change the time and the date on the device. Next to that, you'll see right now an icon that looks like a magnifying glass. That's indicating that we are in search mode. There are 3 modes that the BH-04 has: search mode, oscilloscope, and protection mode. We will go over each of those modes individually. And then next to that, you have the battery state icon. This just shows how much battery charge you have. And I am quite impressed with the battery life for the Bug Hunter. I have never had it die while I'm doing a sweep, and it usually only gets down to 2 bars after an entire sweep. So the battery life is very good, and it charges very quickly. Now, to go through the modes, you would use the mode button that is right here. So right now we are in search mode. If I press the mode button one time, we now go into what's called oscilloscope mode, and you'll see the little oscilloscope. If I press it one more time, we are going to go into what's called protection mode. It's going to flash the icon on the screen for protection mode, and then the screen will shut off. What protection mode is where it is sitting and it's scanning everything right now to see if there are any new signals that it didn't see before. So right there, it just flashed to tell me that it was still in protection mode. If an actual signal comes up, and we will go through this a little later, if an actual signal was to come up, it would turn on and tell me what that signal was. Now, if we take it out of protection mode, go back to the search mode, we'll have our regular screen back on right here. On the bottom left, you'll see a little red tower right here. That is just an indicator that's going to tell you if it detects anything, it's going to tell you what it's detecting. Whether it's a Wi-Fi signal, a wireless LAN signal, a cellular signal, or Bluetooth, it will display right there. Currently, I have everything turned off. And when you do a bug sweep, you want to have everything that could potentially be giving you a signal turned off so you have as clean of an environment as possible. But if a signal was to come up, it would pop up right here and tell me what that signal is. If it cannot identify exactly what it is, then it will tell you what frequency it is on. Now over here you have the E indicator right here. What this is, it has two numbers. The left number in green is the signal strength that it is reading on any given signal. The red is the peak or the highest power rating that it has read. The Z, we'll discuss that a little later. Now, as you notice, it's a fairly clean screen here, but it is showing some signals because it has those numbers over there. We have these buttons right here. If I click the up button, it will now turn the sensitivity of the device up. So it's actually now showing radio signals that are transmitting. When you're using it, you want to be able to move this down to where there's a little bit of signal or no signal so you can scan in the near field, and I'll show you how to do that. One of the problems if you have it too high is it's going to show you everything that's in the spectrum that it's reading right now, every radio signal out there. And right now, you, me, all of us are being bombarded by hundreds, if not thousands, of radio frequency signals all of the time, as you can see right here. But I have everything around me in this room and all the rooms around me turned off. These are radio frequency signals that are coming from the outside world. So you need to be able to turn it down to be able to get into where you can actually do a sweep. And we're going to go over that here in just a minute. The radio signals that you're seeing are actually reading from right to left. It's a time spectrum, so it's going over time. You can use the left button and the right button to change the speed or the time. So if I turn this way, I can make it show me less time. So right now it's showing 3.5 seconds. So every 3.5 seconds, this is what's happening, or in the last 3.5 seconds, that's what's happening. I prefer to have it turned all the way up to 22 seconds so I can have some time to comprehend what I'm seeing on the screen. On the far right, you're going to see these two scales right here. The right one shows the strength in real time of the strongest signal that it's reading. The left is going to indicate the sensitivity that is set. So you notice when I turn the sensitivity up, that scale goes up. When I turn it down, that scale goes down. And that's important because when you adjust it down to be able to sweep, you also want to know exactly where you have it set to make sure you're not too low. So getting it down to a reasonable level like that, you could now take the BH-04 and you can scan it around different things. So now let's do some actual bug sweeping with the Bug Hunter Pro. This little smoke detector that you see right here, it's not just your normal everyday smoke detector. This actually has a hidden camera. It is sitting right there in that hole. It's also Wi-Fi enabled. If I take off the back and you look, I can put in a SD card in it, and it has an on-off button right there, and it is actually Wi-Fi. There's its antenna right there. So if I turn this on, that light starts blinking right there. That red light on that is indicating that it is currently not connected to anything, but it is searching for something to connect to. Right there, you'll see that it's starting to detect the signals that are coming out of this Wi-Fi camera. The green markers are indicating when it sees it, and the red are the peaks. So what I can do is actually turn my sensitivity down a little more so I can actually see the spectrum. I can see the top of it. So with this, I can move this away, and then you will see that the signals are no longer there. So if I'm sweeping an area, I'm going to scan around everything. I'm going to scan around smoke detectors. I'm going to scan around Kleenex boxes, toys, clocks, you name it. Anywhere that might have a bug, I'm going to scan around it. And when I scan over it, then it's going to start indicating to me that there's something there. If I'm not sure, I can always turn the power down and pull away a little bit, or move the device away. Now you'll notice that the sensitivity is turned all the way down there. But then as I get closer to the device, the signals will start going up in strength. As I pull away, the strength will get further and further. So if you're in a real noisy environment, what you want to do is you want to turn that sensitivity down to where there's nothing there. Now, one thing you could do to help calibrate is to take something like this so you can tell what a close signal is going to look like. Or you could probably use your cell phone or a Bluetooth headset or something like that to be able to do that. But in a clean environment, you're going to have no signals whatsoever. That's the best way to do it, because if you continually turn it down, you may eventually miss something. And as you can see with that on, again, if I reach over here on the bottom and I turn the spy camera off, now it's off, it's not transmitting, so it's not going to show up on the BH-04 Pro. But it could, there are some models that it could still be recording and saving it to that SD card. That is where having something like the Spy Finder comes in handy, because I can just hold this button. It's going to flash that red light there. I can point it at anything that I'm suspicious about. So when you have that calibrated properly, and you get it to where all of the signals are turned off around that you're aware of, and you can barely see the signals on there, then when you go around sweeping everything, you are doing what's called sweeping in the near field. You're looking for something transmitting a signal that is close to the bug hunter. You're not worried about the person's cell phone next door. A lot of those cheap devices that you get online, they're going to pick up everything. They're going to pick up the cell phone next door. They're going to pick up the gas meter outside, the electric meter. They're going to pick up reflections of radio signals off of things like lights and refrigerators and motors. Now, if I hit that mode button again right here, we're going to go into oscilloscope mode. So this is showing the oscilloscope look of everything. And this is a very, very clean environment right here. I again can turn it up or turn it down. Again, I try to keep it kind of low in the spectrum of things so I can see. So now, if we get our spy camera right here, put it next to it, there's nothing. But if I turn it on, we will quickly start to see signals in there. And by looking at the pattern of the signals, you're able to identify whether it is a Wi-Fi signal, whether it's a cellular signal, or other types of signals. You can, in the oscilloscope mode too, speed things up or slow things down depending on your preference. Again, I like to have things a little slower so I can comprehend what's going on. So you can see there the signal that's going on, and you can see the type of wave that it's putting up. Another feature in the oscilloscope mode is if I hit the OK button when there's a signal, it will freeze what it sees right there. So then you can take a good look at the signal that it has. So if you need to see that pattern a little more. If I hit it a second time, it goes back to scanning everything. Again, if you need to identify what type of signal it is, whether it's Wi-Fi, GSM, Bluetooth, they all have different patterns. You can go into this. And if I speed it up a little more, you'll start to see the patterns. I'll try to grab one here. You'll start to see the actual patterns in there. It is a bit tricky, but there's the whole pattern of the sweep right there. So once I see that, I can tell this is a Wi-Fi signal right there. Okay, now let's go ahead and turn our spy camera off for now. And we'll go back to here. We're going to push this again. It'll go into protection mode, and then we'll push it again, and it'll go back into search mode. There's another feature on here that is important. It's this one right here. And when we push that, you heard a beep. But if I long press it, then it'll start sending an audio beep. What this is for is to trigger any recorders out there that don't start recording until they hear something. Now there's some that will start recording if it's a camera when there's motion detection. This one that I have, I believe, records off of motion detection. Once it's got a signal locked onto it, it'll start recording when there's motion. But some, especially the older ones, the older bugs, would start recording when they heard something. What'll happen when you have this, if it's one of those older AM demodulated or unencrypted signals, it will pick up that sound and start transmitting it across, and then you would hear that on your headset in your ears. You would hear that beeping as well as hear it coming out of the machine. If I press it again, it goes off and we're all back to our normal search mode. Now what we're going to do is we are going to demonstrate the function of protection mode. So I'm going to hit the mode button once, go into oscilloscope mode. I'm going to hit the mode button again, and we're now in protection mode. My cell phone is currently in airplane mode. What I'm going to do is take it out of airplane mode and set it here so we can see what happens. So now it has started to see that the cell phone started transmitting. Now you have to remember with cell phones, they're not transmitting stuff all the time unless you're on a phone call or when you send or receive a message or something like that. So it may not start transmitting right away when you do that. So now it stopped receiving a signal, so it went ahead and it just went back to the screen off. It doesn't have to alert. But as soon as it starts getting another signal, when it checks for emails or when it gets a weather alert or something, you will see that it comes on and it says right there. Now it's saying a wireless LAN when it's actually a cellular signal, but I have Wi-Fi turned on my phone, but I have my network turned off. So what it's actually seeing is my phone trying to connect to the wireless LAN. The protection mode is actually really good for things such as secured meetings, board of directors meetings, confidential negotiations, things where you have expressed to everybody to not bring any cell phones or smartwatches or any other device in. It could also be used, like I said before, in places like jails or something like that where there's not supposed to be any cellular signals. Now there's another function on here too, and that is called the interference subtraction mode, and that's this icon, this button right here. So when I push this, we are now in interference subtraction function. So when I go in there now, over in the Z display area on the screen, you'll see right over here, it is now displaying numbers. The Z is actually showing the memorized radio signal levels from before when I hit that, while the E area is showing the current levels that it's at. Now let's quickly go over the settings on the Bug Hunter 04 Pro. To enter the settings, you need to hit the icon down here in the bottom with the gear. Push that once. We are now in the settings menu. In here, you're going to see all of the settings pages like date, time, brightness, vibration, protection mode, display disabling, and auto power off. To select a settings menu, just use the up and the down arrows to move to the setting you wish to go into. Each one of them will then be underlined when you get to it. To select one, you just hit the OK button. So right now it is underlined on the date. So if I just hit the OK button, I will now go into the date settings. In here, I can use the up and down arrows. Now remember, this is month, day of the month, and year. Month, day of the month, and year. So I can change the day. I can use the right arrow then to move over. I could change the month. Then I can use the right arrow to change the day. And then if I need to, I can use the right arrow to change the year. When I'm done, all I have to do is hit the menu button again, and it'll come back to the search, and then I can hit the menu button for settings and go back into the settings. If I go into the time setting, it's basically the same as the date setting. I use my up and down arrows to change each one. This is in military time. Remember, it's in military time. Once I'm done, I can then either hit OK or I hit the gear icon again and I go back to the search mode. If I go into the next one, it's brightness. So in the brightness menu, I can set the brightness. I have it set to the second lowest level. I prefer this brightness. Maybe for the video I should have turned it up a little bit, but I prefer this brightness on it. It has 5 levels. It also, on a little bit lower setting, will help the battery last a little longer. Now, if I go into the vibration setting, I can go in here, and there are 3 levels of vibration and then off. So I have it set on the highest level. I prefer that because I can feel it better and I can hear it too when it vibrates, when it's on that higher level. But there are lower ones, or you can have the vibrate turned off as well. There is protection mode settings, which we'll do that here in a second because there's quite a bit in there. Then there is display disabling settings. I go in here, and this will turn the screen off after a certain amount of time. So you can turn it off after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or leave it on. For doing sweeps, you probably want to have it left on. The auto power off, it is the same thing. It has 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute, or always on. So after a certain amount of time, it would just power off. I think it probably needs to be on all the time if I'm using it to do active bug sweeps. Let's now go into the protection mode settings. In here, there are several more modes that you'll see in there, or several mode settings that you will see. Whichever one you're on is highlighted. So right now I have it on the signal threshold. If I go into the signal threshold, when I click OK, it is going to light it up. Now you'll see that there's a number over there. This is the signal strength that you're setting it for to be what would make it alert in protect mode. So a higher strength or a lower strength. What you'll want to do when you go into protection mode is to probably play with this a little bit depending on the environment that you're in to decide what you need to set it at. You can, once you do that, you can hit the right button and you'll see an arrow up and down. Now I can use my arrows up and down to change that. The default is 10 seconds, I believe, and that's what I leave mine at all the time, is the 10 seconds. Once I'm done, I can hit OK. Again, you're using it if it's turned on, if it's lighted. If I hit OK again, now it's turned off. So protection mode is not going to use this setting. Without this, I believe what it is any signal that it detects, regardless of strength, it will take it out of that screen and put an alert up for you. Now I can use those left arrow to go all the way back. I'm going to go back into the protection mode screen. And the next one is for the frequency capture. I'll go into the frequency capture. With this turned on, that means any frequency that it captures will send an alert. Next in the menu is protocol. Now if I go in here and I push that right button, you're going to see multiple protocols in there. It's going to have the wireless LAN, GSM, Bluetooth, 3G, 4G, DECT-B, and DECT. Now, let me explain what that DECT is. stands for Digitally Enhanced Communication Technology. It's essentially those handheld wireless phone systems where you plug the base unit into your phone line at home and then you carry around a little phone. It was one of the first wireless phones. There's still a lot of these, and you'll see these in offices too. And it's important that you know whether that's being used, because a lot of times in office spaces, that's exactly what people will use, is one of those wireless phones. But in here, I can go down and I can pick whatever I want. So if I'm looking for cell phones only, I can put it on GSM, 3G, 4G, and that also picks up 5G, I believe. When I put it on there, then when I'm in protect mode, it's only going to pick up those types of signals. It's not going to pick up Bluetooth. These settings would override everything else. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn these back off. Usually when I'm using it in protection mode, I want it to tell me any signal that is introduced into the space. So I'm going to not use any of those defaults or any of those settings. I'm going to leave it for the default. So anything that comes on, whether it's a Bluetooth headphone or somebody picks up an office phone that's wireless or a cellular phone or a computer being used on Wi-Fi, I want to know about it. Now, the next one on here is duration. And I can go into the duration menu. And again, there's a number. And it's set for 5, and that's 5 seconds. If I push the right button, you'll see an up and down arrow. I believe this will go up to 60 seconds, and that 5 is for seconds. That's how long the signal has to be there for it to send an alert while in protection mode. So it has to have seen that signal for 5 seconds, or 2 seconds, or 53 seconds, whatever you have it set for. Now, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to turn that off. I'll turn the protocol off. Now, keep a log. If I want it to keep a log, I'll push that button, and now it will log all of the signals that it sees while it's in protection mode. Now, when you plug the USB cable into the BH-04 Pro, when the unit is powered on, you will get a menu where you can select to charge only or to view the logs. If the unit is powered off and you plug it into the USB cable, it will only charge the battery. The PDF log file will look like this when you open it. Now, keep in mind, these log files can get very large very quickly, so you will need to plan plenty of time to view them if you need to look them over after a sweep. It shows you which antenna picked up the signal, the time it saw the signal, the time period or how long it saw that signal, the peak and the average signal strength, and the protocol, or what type of signal it was. Now, one thing that I noticed was on my system anyway, when I was connected directly to the BH-04 Pro, I could not open the file on my computer. I had to copy those files over to my computer, which isn't a big problem because I'm going to do that anyway and put that in the case folder so I have it for future reference. So there you go. That is the Bug Hunter BH-04 Pro from PBN Tech. Now, I'm sure that you want to hear what my take is on what I think about this as a professional piece of bug sweeping equipment. The first thing I want to put out there in full disclosure, PBN Tech did send me this Bug Hunter Pro for me to take a look at. They wanted to get my opinion on it, and they asked me if I would be interested in doing an honest review video. Now, even though they did send it to me, these are my honest opinions about this as a professional piece of TSCM equipment. The first thing I'll say is when I looked at this online and I saw some of the pictures, I was a little skeptical. It kind of reminded me of those cheap devices that you see out there, but this is nothing like those cheap devices. And I have done some reviews of some of those cheap devices, and I can guarantee you this has 100%, 1000% more functionality than anything like that out there. The Bug Hunter Pro is definitely a piece of professional TSCM equipment. It is housed in this very heavy-duty aluminum housing. The buttons that it has, aluminum heavy-duty buttons. You can hear them, you can feel them click. Very good. All the buttons on the face, they have that haptic or vibrate feedback. You can feel it, you can hear it. You don't have to push a button a bunch of times to make it work. You just simply push it and it works. The screen is very, very easy to see. It just makes sense as a professional bug sweeping device. And the fact that I can use both of the antennas and go from 10 megahertz up to 8 gigahertz all at once is quite amazing. Now, you have to keep in mind on the lower band, the 10 megahertz to 2.4 or 2.5, I believe it's 2.4 gigahertz. This one does have a high sensitivity range that it uses when it's being used by itself. So if you're doing a more comprehensive sweep, you might want to sweep first with antenna 1 and then sweep with antenna 2. It's going to take more time to do the sweep, but you're going to be much more comprehensive. But the fact that I can go in and do a very quick sweep with both of them is very, very important to me. Now, when I first started doing bug sweeps, and I started as a PI back in 2008, and when I first started, I had got a device that was sort of similar to this made by a company called LawMate. And I sell a lot of LawMate products on my website. They don't make that device that I bought back then, but it was kind of similar. It didn't have a display on it, but it had bars that indicated the signal strength. It had a setting on it so I could lower the sensitivity so I can do near field sweeping. It had the haptic feedback, and it was just a very well constructed device to be able to get going. I used it to get started and then later spent tens of thousands of dollars on other equipment. This reminds me of that. I haven't seen a device that you can go out as a starter TSCM professional piece of equipment since then, until I saw this. If I was starting out as a TSCM bug sweep technician today, if I was just starting out, I would want to spend the money on something like this. This is going to find 90% of all the bugs that are transmitting a signal out there. That other 10%, that means the KGB, the CIA, the IRS, somebody like that is looking into you, and you're going to need a lot of other sophisticated pieces of equipment to find those sophisticated types of bugs. But for the average bug sweep out there, for somebody that thinks a spouse or an ex-spouse has planted a camera or an audio device somewhere in the house, if somebody's worried about what's going on in their business, this is the type of device that you can use as a PI once you do a little bit of training on it to be able to go out and do a professional sweep. Now, one of the things that I've done is I made my own case, and I'll show you a picture of my case setup that I've added a lot of different things to it. And I'll put a link down below for the Bug Hunter Pro standalone. And PBN Tech also sells it as a starter kit that comes in a nice black case, and it comes with the Spy Finder Pro, which is one of these devices to be able to find lenses on cameras. With that, you have a pretty good starter setup. Throw in an inspection camera, some inspection mirrors, and a flashlight, and you are good to go to get started. Now, I was pretty hard pressed to find any cons on this unit. Now, because I have tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in other bug sweeping equipment, I will go over some of the things that this cannot do. So some of the things that it is not able to do that more sophisticated pieces of equipment can do are things like the active infrared lighting or lasers, if you will. But again, that is technology that the average Joe isn't going to get on eBay or Amazon and be able to find that bug. When you're looking for something like that, it's probably a state versus state or a corporate espionage type of situation. There's also the ability to have bugs on phone lines, network lines, and even electrical lines, the AC that's running through a house or an office. Again, very, very, very sophisticated. I have the equipment that can test all of that stuff, but it costs 3 to 4 times what this costs. and you really don't need that because the average person isn't going to be able to afford, let alone implement those types of bugs out there. If I was starting out my TSCM bug sweeping business today, this would be what I would get to start it, knowing that I'm doing a professional job for my client.